Hello friends, welcome to Insights I Can Initiative. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Forest Conservation Act Amendment Bill. Okay, so before we discuss further about this topic, first let us examine the syllabus mapping. As a part of syllabus mapping, this topic is related to UPSC Mains General Studies Paper 3. In that aspect, this is related to conservation area. So in this video, what we are going to discuss? Now let us examine. In this video, we are going to discuss about why this particular issue is in news. That is, why it is in news. Then we will discuss about background on the forest laws in India. What kind of forest laws? The forest laws which were made in 1927 and the Forest Conservation Act 1980. What is the main difference? We will discuss. Then, what are the proposed amendments? What is the criticism against it? And what is the government's response? And finally, we will discuss about what type of different forest, okay? What are the different types of forest? Protected forest as well as notified forest and village forest. We will discuss about various forest types. And in the end of the video, we will discuss about what is the role of the Forest Advisory Committee, FAC. What is that role? Okay, this is the outline. So this topic is about the recently Government of India. They forwarded the Forest Conservation Act Amendment Bill to the Parliamentary Committee. The Parliamentary Committee, which consisted of 31 members, they did not amend anything related to Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. So that entire bill, now it is going to the Parliament monsoon session. Actually, so many environmentalists and some opposition leaders, they protested against the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. Because of that protest, the bill forwarded to Parliamentary Committee. Now the Parliamentary Committee endorsed, that means it supported without any further changes, and this bill is going to be introduced before the Parliament. What is this amendments? What amendments are going to we do for the Forest Conservation Act? These amendments are, so these amendments are saying that it will promote the tree cover in the forest area and it will improve the carbon sink. Carbon sink means obviously when tree cover is increased, the amount of the carbon dioxide will be absorbed from the environment also will increase. Here one question to you students. The question is, by which year India want to achieve the net zero carbon? Okay, net zero carbon. By which year India wanted to achieve the net zero carbon emissions? Tell me. Next, these amendments are proposing that national security infrastructure must be improved. How it is related, further explanation I will explain. And livelihood opportunities of the people who are living based on the forest also will be improved. These are the areas which are mainly discussed in this particular amendment. Next, regarding the Forest Conservation Act, this act was made in 1980. Previously, Britishers made Forest Act in 1927. That act was not for the protection of forest, but that was mainly related to the exploitation of the forest. To overcome those deficiencies, Government of India made Forest Conservation Act 1980. This act mainly speaks about, it prevents the conversion of forest land into non-forest purpose. In case, if the forest land is converted into non-forest purpose, then whatever the land converted, that land has to be compensated. That means that much amount of the land in that area or any another area, we have to grow the forest. For example, 5 acres of forest converted into non-forest purpose, that means 5 acres of the trees, you have to grow those trees in somewhere else. That is known as compensation. Compensation. According to this law, next in further after two more decades, we brought this CAMPA also we brought. Okay, Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority, CAMPA. If you know students, if you know the answer, tell me, CAMPA funds are contributed by the union government or state government? Comment your answer. Okay, next. And this act is also saying that if state government want to divert any land, any forest land to the non-forest purpose, it has to take the permission from the central government students. So state government has to take the permission from central government. As I mentioned earlier, British made Indian Forest Act in 1927. Their main objective was not to conserve the forest but to exploit the forest, mainly timber and other forest reserves. Next, according to the Standing Committee on Science and Technology, Environment and Forest 2019, according to this committee, in India, the pressure on forest is increasing a lot due to urbanization or due to expansion of the agriculture and due to the expansion of industries. The pressure on the forest is increasing and it is a time to conserve the forest. Here you have to understand, students, there is a criticism on this amendment bill. One of the criticism is this forest conservation amendment bill, it has to be checked or it has to be reviewed by the Standing Committee on Science and Technology. Instead of this amendment bill, it was reviewed by the Parliamentary Committee, which consists of 31 members. Out of the 31 members, 18 members are belong to the ruling party. This is also one of the criticism regarding the scrutiny of the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. Next, why people are concerning about? People are concerning about following aspects. Environmentalists are claiming that the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill, it is diluting the protection given to forest. That means it allows the conversion of forest land to non-forest purpose. This is one of the main concern. Second, this Forest Conservation Amendment Bill, it is saying that if there is a forest which is present within the 100 kilometers, if any forest is present within the 100 kilometers of the border, then when you are clearing the forest or so for any purpose, for making a road or whatever it may be, for those kind of things, government no need to require any forest clearance permission. Okay. So within 100 kilometers of international border or LOC, they no longer require forest clearance, which raise concerns about the environment as well as security issues. This is the second one. And when you have this kind of provision, majority of the northeast biodiversity will be affected. That is also one of the concerns raising by the environmentalists and people in northeast. And this amendment is also allowing the various tourism activities in forest areas. And one more thing is, students, like I said earlier, this amendment is going to affect the northeastern states because of that rule of 100 kilometers 100 kilometers from the international border, where if you are clearing the forest, you don't need any forest clearance is required. Next, what are some of the adversary effects? This amendment is also allowing the activities like zoo and activities like ecotourism, and it's also allowing the surveys. These kind of activities also allowed, and it is also diluting the forest ecosystem. And name changing controversy. Now the Forest Conservation Act is changing to 1 Sankarshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam. This act is changing to 1 Adhiniyam. Complete name is 1 Sankarshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam. So people are saying that the secular nature of the forest law being changed and it is toward one particular religion. This is also one of the criticism on the name changing. Like I said earlier, this amendment bill was examined by the joint parliamentary committee rather than the standing committee. Okay, it's supposed to be examined by the Standing Committee on Science, Environment and Forest. Rather than that, it forwarded to the joint committee, where out of the 31 members, 18 members belong to one political party. Here one question to you, students: how many departmental standing committees are there in Indian Parliament? How many departmental standing committees are there in the Indian Parliament? Answer. In this context, you have to know what are the different types of forests. In India, forests can be classified into reserve forest, protected forest and village forest. Reserve forest, these are the highly protected ones, and once a particular forest is recognized as a reserve forest, no human activities allowed. No human activities allowed. Even the local people also, they cannot do any kind of hunting or gathering. That is about the reserve forest. Next, protected forest. These are the forests declared by the state which are not covered by the reserve forest. Here the main important thing you have to understand here local community, they have their rights. Sometimes they can do the hunting and grazing of the animals belong to the local community is also allowed. So in terms of protection, reserve forests are the highly protected than the protected forest. Next one, there are certain village forests which are controlled by particular village where the forest is located. This type of forests are known as village forest. In terms of protection, here you can see the highly protected one is a reserve forest, next one is a protected forest, and next one is the village forest. This is in terms of the protection. Next, stand of central government. In spite of various criticisms on the forest conservation bill, central government is advocating that, it is saying that this bill is removing all the ambiguities so that forest conservation can be done very effectively, and this bill is also considering the security concerns, especially if it is within 100 kilometers from the LOC or international border, forest clearance is not required. That means urgently if you want to make any road or if you want to make any bridge, those can be done very quickly. And it also promotes the plantation activity in the forest. This is the government version, students. In this aspect, you have to know about what is the role of the forest advisory committee. Forest advisory committee, mainly students, it is a statutory body. It got powers from where? Forest Conservation Act 1980. When government is diverting a forest land to non-forest purpose, then forest advisory committee approval is required. Once the forest advisory committee is approved, then that report will be forwarded to the particular state. The state has to do all the studies whether the diversion of the forest land to non-forest purpose, whether it is violating any forest rights or not, that will be checked. If it is not violating any forest rights, then the forest land will be diverted to non-forest land in a successful manner. What is the conclusion? The conclusion is the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill, despite it is facing lot of controversies, still it is received the endorsement of the parliamentary committee, and the proposed amendments according to government point of view, they are going to bring more clarity, and it is going to clear out any ambiguities, and it is going to increase the plantation. So we wish these objectives must be fulfilled by these particular amendments without disturbing our ecosystem. In last video, I asked you one question, that is, which of the following statements are correct with reference to Singh Sabha movement? With respect to Singh Sabha movement, all these are right. It was aimed to modern Western education for Sikh. It was formed to counter religious conversion activities related to Sikh, and the Akali movement was one of the branch of the Singh Sabha movement. So answer is D. Now we will see today's question. Students. Today's question is, with reference to the Forest Advisory Committee, consider the following statement. With respect to Forest Advisory Committee, which one is right? It gives approval for diverting forest land for non-forest usage. Then this committee will examine whether the user agent, whoever using, has a plan in place to ensure that following environmental damage will be minimal. It will check when you are converting the forest land to non-forest land, the damage to the environmental must be minimum. Whether that was ensured or not also will be checked by this committee. Mains one. Forest Conservation Rule 2022, they are in conflict with the Forest Rights Act 2006. Critically analyze. This is the today's mains question, students. As we are reaching to the end of this video, what we discussed in this video, first we discussed about the context regarding the amendment to Forest Conservation Act, why there are a lot of criticism, and what is the view of the government we discussed, and various laws related to forest conservation. One was in 1927, the other one was in 1980. Both we discussed, and we also discussed about the Forest Advisory Committee and what is the role of the Forest Advisory Committee also we discussed. Apart from this, why the people are mainly worrying about this Forest Conservation Amendment? It's mainly about this is diluting the Forest Conservation Act, and ecotourism and zoo kind of activities are being allowed, and the forest within 100 kilometers, if government want to clear any forest clearance is not required according to this act. These are some of the provisions regarding the Forest Conservation Amendment Act, and this is the detailed analysis regarding the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill.